center, identified the epicenter in Jajarkot, approximately 250 miles northeast of Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. Following the powerful earthquake, both helicopters and ground troops were rapidly deployed for rescue and assistance efforts. As dawn broke, rescue helicopters were sent to the affected area and security forces on the ground diligently worked to extract the injured and rescue those trapped in the debris, as stated by the Nepal police spokesman Kuber Kadayat. Nepalese Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal visited affected areas by helicopter and took stock of the situation. Right on your screens, visuals of the same. There, 3 helicopters have been prepared for now to fly to the earthquake-affected areas, carrying medical teams and medicines to Jajarkot. Up till now, officials have stated that these helicopters will be dispatched from Kathmandu as soon as the weather conditions improve. Now, Nepal is unfortunately quite used to such severe earthquake events. In 2015, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake caused around 9,000 casualties, with hundreds of thousands of structures being destroyed in Kathmandu and other towns nearby. The Himalayan region is also known to be quite prone to earthquakes because of the excessive activity of tectonic plates. Right on your screens, visuals from Jajarkot, Nepal. Devastation and complete chaos in the city. Over 150 people have lost their lives and dozens others have been injured. Now, death toll is expected to rise as the rescue operations continue. Nepalese Prime Minister also visited the earthquake-hit areas to take stock of the situation. There were many people who were trying to tell the Nepalese Prime Minister about what they have gone through in the past few hours. Now, there he visited the earthquake-affected areas by chopper and took stock of the situation. 3 helicopters have been prepared for now to fly to the earthquake-affected areas, carrying medical teams and medicines to Jajarkot. Up until now, the officials have stated that these helicopters will be dispatched from Kathmandu as soon as the weather conditions improve in Nepal. The earthquake had its epicenter at Jajarkot. Now, this is in the mid-western region of Nepal. Right on your screens, we're showing you the epicenter of the earthquake, which is Jajarkot, which is about 500 kilometers away from Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. This is in the mid-western region of Nepal and is fairly densely populated. Rescue workers are trying to clear roads to reach the affected region. For those who have just joined us, now the epicenter of this particular earthquake is Jajarkot. This earthquake has claimed the lives of about 150 people and left dozens injured. We also have several reactions coming in. Take a listen.
नातिले दुईटा नानीसित उसको श्रीमती पनि अलि उस छ उसको श्रीमती पनि गर्ने जस्तो अवस्थाको छैन संस्कार भनेर आज गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ यहाँ हजुर आज छोरो चाहिँ भेटियो अरु चाहिँ 4 जनाको अरु
एक्चुअली आप जब देखेंगे कि 9th November 2022 9th November 2022 there was the one earthquake. If you see this the map, you can see this 9th November 2022 6.3 मैग्नीट्यूड का अर्थक्वेक हुआ था. ये देख रही हैं. इसके बाद से आप इधर में जाइए तो फिर जनवरी 2023 में 5.8 मैग्नीट्यूड का हुआ दिस अर्थक्वेक। अगेन ये नवंबर के जिस अब साउथ ऑफ द ईस्ट में 6.2 अर्थक्वेक 3 अक्टूबर 2023। तो इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जितने आप लाइन देख रही हैं तो हिमालय का जो भी नेपाल हिमालय है कंसिस्ट ऑफ डिफरेंट सेस्मोटेक्टोनिक सेटिंग्स। इसमें बहुत से फॉल्ट्स होते हैं, डिफरेंट फॉल्ट्स जो कि सेस्मोजेनिक फॉल्ट होते हैं। जो फॉल्ट जब होता है, फॉल्ट क्या है, 2 ब्लॉक का डिस्प्लेसमेंट है, मीन्स इट इज द डायनेमिक ऑब्जेक्ट। समटाइम्स फॉल्ट स्टार्टेड टू बी क्वाइसेंट, समटाइम्स फॉल्ट स्टार्टेड टू बी डायनेमिक। तो अभी जो नेपाल अर्थक्वेक का जो आपने देखा होगा, ये जो सबसे बड़ा अर्थक्वेक हुआ था 7.9 मैग्नीट्यूड का 25 अप्रैल 2015, ये इसका लोकेशन था, एपी सेंटर था। कल जो अर्थक्वेक हुआ 23:32 में रात में, वो ये अर्थक्वेक जो है ये नवंबर वाला जो अर्थक्वेक है 2022, द अर्थक्वेक ऑफ 2022, जस्ट इट वाज द ईस्टर्न साइड ऑफ दिस नवंबर अर्थक्वेक, but it was all propagated. If you come here, then you can see the 7.9 earthquake aftershocks occurred 7.3, biggest aftershock, first aftershock. So it was occurred in between the November earthquake as well as it's the aftershock of the 7.9 earthquake, 25th April 2015. Why it is happening? Because when the one earthquake occurs, it releases the strain energy. That strain energy accumulates somewhere, and it keep on accumulating and keep on increasing. So once is the shearing strength or bearing strength of the rock material exceeded, then that zone rock ruptures, means breaks, and then earthquake happen. So several types of the earthquakes, 5.8, 6.2, 6.3, again 6.4 occurred in this zone. So huge amount of the strain energy has already been released.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also posted about the development on the platform X, formerly Twitter, and he wrote, "Right on your screens, deeply saddened by loss of lives and damage due to the earthquake in Nepal. India stands in solidarity with the people of Nepal and is ready to extend all possible assistance. Our thoughts are with the bereaved families and we wish the injured a quick recovery." India stands in solidarity with the people of Nepal is the message Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given out to the people of Nepal. Devastation and chaos. Right on your screens, these are the visuals coming in from Jajarkot. Moving on now, terrorists attacked an Air Force training base in the central Pakistani area of Mianwali on Saturday morning, damaging 3 aircraft. 9 terrorists have been killed and the clearance operation at Pakistan Air Force Base has concluded, says the Pakistan military. 3 terrorists were killed even before they entered the base. The others caused some damage to 3 grounded aircraft and a fuel tanker before the attack was repulsed. Islamist terrorist group Tehreek-e-Jihad Pakistan claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement to journalists by its spokesperson. TJP came to the fore only this year and has carried out a string of high-profile attacks in the country, including killing 12 soldiers at a Pakistani military base in the southwestern province of Balochistan in July. Now, do remember, Tehreek-e-Jihad is a relatively new and unknown group that was previously held responsible for a number of attacks on Pakistani targets earlier this year. Now, it is unknown what is the affiliation of this group. It is also worth noting that this attack comes at a time when thousands of Afghan refugees are being forced to leave Pakistan. The reason for this is being speculated to be a pressure tactic by the Pak government aimed at forcing the Taliban to accept the Durand Line. This isn't the first time that a Pakistani airbase or any military target has been attacked. Previous attacks have been carried out by TTP and ISIS-K. Now, Pakistani terrorists had also hit Karachi Naval Base in the year 2011 in Bin Laden revenge attack. This is right on your screens. This is the attack that was carried out by Pakistani terrorists on Karachi Naval Base in the year 2011 in Bin Laden revenge attack. Now in the latest, for those who have just joined in, terrorists have attacked an Air Force training base in the central Pakistani area of Mianwali on Saturday morning, damaging 3 aircraft. A total of 9 terrorists have been neutralized, and the clearance operation at the Pakistan Air Force base has concluded. This is what the Pakistan military stated. 3 terrorists were killed even before they entered the base. 3 aircraft have been damaged in this entire incident. That's a massive, in fact, development that's coming in light from Pakistan, where terrorists have attacked an Air Force training base and have damaged 3 aircraft. A total of 9 terrorists have been killed, and the clearance operation has come to an end. Now, 3 terrorists were killed even before they entered the base. The others caused some damage to 3 grounded aircraft and a fuel tanker before the attack was repulsed. Islamist terrorist group Tehreek-e-Jihad Pakistan claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement to journalists by its spokesperson. Let's get you the latest from war-torn Israel. Today is day 29 of the Israel-Hamas war. Let us take a look at the latest updates from the war front. Right on your screens, today is day 29 of Israel-Hamas war. Israel has targeted Hamas chief's home with missile. The Israeli Defense Forces have claimed that they have eliminated terrorists and located Hamas weapons. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken visits Jordan. Israel has urged its citizens to reconsider foreign travel. Hamas has stressed on prisoners' release. The IDF has again struck terror targets in Lebanon. Israel deports thousands of Palestinian workers back to Gaza. These are the updates from day 29 of the Israel-Hamas war, right on your screens. Now, a report in the New York Times citing expert analysis of satellite images, photos and videos stated that Israel used at least 2 2,000-pound bombs during an airstrike on Jabaliya last Tuesday. The report quoted hospital officials who stated that dozens of civilians were killed and hundreds were wounded in the strike. Israel said it was targeting a Hamas commander and fighters, as well as the network of underground tunnels used by Hamas to hide weapons and fighters. The report claims that the evidence and analysis show that the Israeli military dropped at least 2 2,000-pound bombs on the site. Dozens of civilians were killed in the airstrike. That's what the Gazan authorities had stated. Now, the report states that Israel is not being very clear on what weapons they used on the Jabaliya refugee camp. Experts quoted by the New York Times report, who had a look at the images, are divided on whether the munitions that were dropped were bunker busters or not. While critics say that such bombs are complete overkill because of their potential for collateral damage and go against the claim that Israel is trying to keep the civilians safe. Its military leaders, however, maintain that such heavy ordnance was necessary to target underground facility. Footage released by the Israeli army showed tanks firing artillery rounds and soldiers moving through buildings reduced to rubble amid the ongoing military operation in Gaza. The Israeli army claimed that troops killed dozens of terrorists and destroyed Hamas terror infrastructure. The footage also showed monochrome footage of targets being hit in air raids. Israel's ground forces encircled Gaza City after stepping up a bombing campaign. It says aims at wiping out Hamas after the terrorist group killed 1,400 people and took about 240 people as hostages in an October 7 assault in southern Israel. Now, as the war between Israel and Hamas enters its 29th day, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected US calls for a humanitarian pause in the Gaza region. Netanyahu said that no ceasefire with Hamas is possible until hostages are freed. He stressed that Israel refuses to any temporary ceasefire that does not include release of hostages. Take a listen.
Our victor will be singular and clear. It will deliver the message to our enemies, a message that will resonate for generations. The goal of our enemies is the destruction of the state of Israel, and I say to you, I say to them, our enemies will fail. As relates to the north, I repeat and say to our enemies, do not mistake us. A mistake will cost you dearly. A mistake will cost you something you cannot even imagine. In the meantime, we continue to act on the diplomatic front. This morning, I met with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. I welcomed his message here. I welcome that of President Biden and the American nation. I showed Secretary of State Blinken, I showed him a video clip from one of the cameras from the Gaza Strip. He spoke about this. In it, two youngsters, brothers, watched their father murdered. One of them has lost his sight, calls out to his mother. That's just a small part of the horrors in that video clip. I conveyed that we are proceeding with all our might, and Israel refuses any temporary ceasefire that does not include the return of our kidnapped hostages. Israel will not permit the transfer of fuel to Gaza Strip and oppose the transfer of funding to Gaza. Citizens of Israel, from the outbreak of war on the Black Sabbath, we have lost many civilians, fighters, soldiers, members of the security services, police, and emergency workers. We've lost incredible combat soldiers, beloved Israelis, salt of the earth, people who fought with their bodies, their nails against these monsters.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Tel Aviv on Friday. The United States' top diplomat is in the region for the second time in less than a month to push for humanitarian pauses in the Gaza war. He emphasized Israel's right to take all necessary measures to prevent a recurrence of the October 7 attack. However, he also stressed the importance of how Israel conducts these actions, particularly in safeguarding the well-being of civilians affected by the conflict initiated by Hamas. He said that Israel must protect civilians in the bombardment of Gaza. Blinken's visit comes after Israel said that its troops had surrounded the Palestinian enclave's biggest city, the focus of its drive to wipe out Hamas. Now, the White House had earlier said that any pauses in fighting should be temporary and localized. It has dismissed calls from Arab and several other nations for a full ceasefire in the war, which is now in its 29th day.
As long as the United States stands, Israel will never stand alone. Today, in my fourth visit to Israel since October 7th, I reiterate that in all my discussions with Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Herzog, the Security Cabinet. I reiterated and made clear our support for Israel's right to defend itself, indeed its obligation to defend itself. That includes through the additional assistance that we've worked with Congress and we're working with Congress now to provide for Israel's defense, as well as for urgent humanitarian needs in Gaza. This right to self-defense, indeed this obligation to self-defense, belongs to every nation. No country could or should tolerate the slaughter of innocents. You've heard me speak to some of the stories that Israelis have experienced on October 7th. Today, we saw additional images, additional footage collected by the Israeli government from video cameras, some the terrorists' own, others in communities that were attacked. It remains almost beyond the human capacity to process, to digest.
The United States House approved a nearly $15 billion aid package for Israel, which was initiated by Republicans and faces uncertain prospects in the Democrat-led Senate.
The U.S. House passed a bill to provide almost $15 billion in aid to Israel on Thursday, a Republican initiative proposal that may not survive in the Democrat-led Senate. The funding would include $4 billion for Israel's defense systems to counter short-range rocket threats. It's the first major legislative action under new Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. However, it may be doomed to falter when it heads to the next chamber of Congress, because the bill combines aid for Israel with a cut to the tax-collecting IRS and leaves out funding for Ukraine. President Joe Biden has promised a veto should it make it through Congress. Instead, he has asked lawmakers to approve a broader emergency spending package that includes funding for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. The Senate's Majority Leader Chuck Schumer also said he would not bring the House bill up for a vote. Meanwhile, the IRS has been given extra cash to ramp up services under a new law Biden signed last year. That move was opposed by many Republicans. And they said slashing the agency's budget is essential to offset the cost of the military aid to Israel. The U.S. already gives Tel Aviv almost $4 billion per year in military assistance under a 10-year plan that began in 2016. The standoff between the two chambers could mean it will be weeks before Congress approves any emergency spending plan.
Now, Eyal Waldman, an Israeli entrepreneur, has lost his daughter tragically. Take a look at this report to find out more. Well, in fact, we seem to be facing a technical difficulty. We'll get to that later. Now, he was, in fact, an Israeli entrepreneur and former combat fighter. He's tragically lost his daughter in an attack by Hamas. He's now calling for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's resignation, asserting that the Israeli government should take responsibility for its failure to prevent the attack. We'll get to that story later. But of course, in the meantime, there has been a lot going on when it comes to the Israel-Hamas war. Talking about only the casualties suffered by both the sides, it was on the 7th of October when Hamas carried out a deadly attack against Israel, against southern Israel, killing about 1,400 people and taking about 224 people as hostages. And in retaliation, Hamas has been bombarding Gaza, and about 10,000 people, nearly 10,000 people have lost their lives, while over 15,000 have been left injured. Let's now take you to the story of Eyal Waldman, an Israeli entrepreneur and former combat fighter who has tragically lost his daughter.
This is Danielle and Noam and Jesse.
I'm at the high-rise home of Eyal Waldman in Tel Aviv. His 24-year-old daughter was killed on October 7th with her boyfriend Noam Shea. He shared with me their story.
Danielle and Noam, they're amazing kids, like really loved having fun, doing stuff, and enjoying life. No? And then on Friday, they decided to go to this party of freedom, love, and peace, the Supernova Festival, with a lot of music, DJs, and so on. So they brought their dog to her mother, said we'll come Saturday morning to pick her up. They went down south, they were in the party, and then those creatures came from Gaza and started slaughtering, raping, cutting parts, taking eyes out, doing awful things to all those people. And Danielle, Noam, and her friends got in a car, got out of the party. They went south, which probably would have been smart because most of the kids turned north and it was more free. But then 3 terrorists from behind showed them we found the car. We've seen trails of 3 Kalashnikov shells from behind shooting at the car. Mm-hmm. We found like a Gaza SUV, a Toyota SUV, about 150 meters north of them, with 3 bodies, 1 out of the car and 2 inside. And then we found a motorcycle south of them, so they really couldn't escape. And they were shot. Out of the 5, we think 1 is a hostage, and 4 are dead.
How are you processing things, first of all?
It's difficult. I think losing a son or a daughter is something no one should experience. And unfortunately, we're experiencing now after the murder of Danielle and her boyfriend Noam. It's definitely a very difficult time for my ex-wife, Danielle's mother, her brother and sister, and for me as well.
But you not only lost a daughter, you also lost a potential son-in-law.
Yes, they were talking about getting married, and unfortunately that wouldn't happen. You know, my ex-wife, I think 2 or 3 days ago, said that she had a dream of Danielle in a wedding dress. It was really painful because this will never happen. Danielle will never wear a wedding dress. And instead of doing a wedding, we buried them together. We had a funeral.
Your opinion, what went wrong from the Israeli side?
Oh, we completely messed up. I mean, just amazingly how messed up we were. So our intelligence failed. Our communications failed.
So this wasn't just a failure of surveillance, but also on a political level.
Obviously, there is responsibility on the government, on the prime minister, no doubt. They should definitely resign shamefully and remove their places.
So what's next?
I hope that after this crisis that we went through, after the murder of Danielle and Noam, that is an amazing sacrifice, an unbelievable pain, we will be able to do something and create peace, but only after destroying Hamas and Islamic Jihad and making sure that the people that have done what they've done are eliminated from this place.
What sort of world would you like them to have experienced?
You know, a world of peace, a world of freedom. You know, I think Gaza citizens do not deserve what they're going through now. Gaza citizens should be free, should be celebrating, should have amazing hotels on the beach. They have amazing beaches there. I've been there multiple times. They should have amazing agriculture. They should have amazing things. Hamas and Islamic Jihad are responsible for what Gaza is now. In 2005, when we left, there were a lot of agriculture, tourism, other infrastructure. They've destroyed everything and went to war with us. I hope now, after this, they and we will help them rebuild this to really build an area where we can live together in synergistic relationships, both economic and tourism and whatever, and build great two states for the two people.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Switching our focus to some other international stories now. There has been a significant surge in the smuggling of people at the eastern border of the European Union. An increasing number of migrants are attempting to enter the EU through the Baltic route. Now, there are suspicions that Russian and Belarusian leaders are, in fact, maybe exploiting these migrants for their own strategic purposes. Take a look at this report.
Different uniforms, the same aim: securing the border between Latvia and Belarus. For the past 2 months, Latvian border guards and the country's military have been patrolling the EU external border. That's because there has been a surge in illegal crossings. Latvia, an EU country, is currently a prime destination for migrants from Syria, Afghanistan and several African countries who enter from Belarus. Authorities estimate that more than 11,000 people have been intercepted so far this year, more than ever before.
This crossing point is closed and has been secured. There is no traffic passing through here anymore. But Latvia's border with Belarus is almost 173 kilometers long.
80 kilometers of that are now protected by this fence. It's been built in the last few months and it's being extended. But it's not enough to deter everyone.
They try to climb over the fence. Some of them, they are trying to dig under the fence. So there are still quite many cases when they try to damage the fence. They are very creative and trying to use all the opportunities and ways to get in.
Authorities say it's a coordinated effort. It's not the first time they've seen something like this. 2 years ago, thousands of migrants stormed the border between Belarus and Poland. It was allegedly encouraged by Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko as a way to exert pressure on the EU in retaliation for sanctions on Belarus. Most of the migrants were headed to Western European countries like Germany, which are still favored destinations. German authorities say that now migrants are being smuggled on a route through Turkey, via Russia, and from there on to Belarus, and then into the EU.
Lukashenko is playing the same deceitful game as Putin. We have to watch this carefully, especially with Belarus, which is de facto dependent on Russia. Both are using migration as a weapon to tear our society apart and destabilize Europe.
People who manage to cross into Latvia are picked up and driven to Germany by car for $1,600 per person. That's according to Latvian media. Those caught attempting to cross are returned to Belarus, a policy criticized by human rights organizations. On some days in September, as many as 100 people attempted to illegally cross into Latvia. That's unlikely to change soon.
We would like to be optimistic, but we still have to be realists. And the situation, currently, there is no any sign about possible improvement.
In the meantime, Lithuania and Estonia have sent reinforcements to Latvia to help secure the EU eastern border.
Descendants of tribal leaders executed by German colonial forces are demanding the repatriation of the skulls of the deceased individuals, believed to be held in a Berlin museum. Among the victims was Mangi Meli, a prominent leader of the Chaga tribe who fiercely opposed the German colonial presence.
The town of Moshi, on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, is home to the Chaga tribe. Isaria Meli's grandfather was Mangi Meli, leader of the Chaga when they fought German colonists, but lost. Several years later, the Germans hanged Meli and others, thinking they were going to rebel again. They took several schools back to Germany.
What was done to Mangi Meli, to me and my family, we are not satisfied. It planted fear into our lives. This act wasn't normal. It was an act of great violence that was done to us. And that is why we have not lived in peace all these years.
This museum tells Mangi Meli's story, his leadership of the Chaga tribe and his rebellion against the Germans. The fact that the Germans not only executed him, but beheaded him and took his school to Berlin means a normal grave will not be an option, even if the school is returned.
We have decided that after its return, his skull will not be buried in the ground, because his body was not legally buried. His body was laid to rest without proper rites, and where he was laid, he cannot be seen. Therefore, we believe his spirit is not at peace, and we are looking at a place where he will be commemorated.
Mangi Meli used to own all this land here, as he was chief of the Chaga tribe. It is now owned by his grandson and his generations. That tree there was where the German colonizers hung him and 18 others.
Zabron Kiwelu's grandfather was among those killed here. His school is also in Germany. A DNA test has confirmed the relationship. Kiwelu wants more than just the school. He also wants compensation.
We request that the Tanzanian government take a firm stance to ensure that the German government pays us. If the government maintains this stance, we could be paid even today.
Isaria went to Germany to take a DNA test, but says officials there could not find a school with a link. His 50-year-old fight to find his grandfather's remains and bring them home continues.
Tech billionaire Elon Musk spoke alongside British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London's Artificial Intelligence Safety Summit, as he welcomed China's engagement on artificial intelligence safety and said he wanted to see Beijing aligned with Britain and the United States on the subject. Take a look at this report.
Like-minded governments and AI companies have today reached a landmark agreement.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on Thursday hailed an agreement between leading AI developers and governments to test new artificial intelligence models before they are released. He said the accord on the final day of his two-day AI safety summit would help to manage the risks of the rapidly developing technology and protect humanity from the potential threat it poses.
The late Stephen Hawking once said, "AI is likely to be the best or worst thing to happen to humanity." If we can sustain the collaboration that we have fostered over these last 2 days, I profoundly believe that we can make it the best. Because safely harnessing this technology could eclipse anything we have ever known.
The list of countries that had signed up to the safety testing collaboration did not include China, whose representatives were not included in the second day of talks. But the day prior, Sunak secured China's backing of the Bletchley Declaration, another international effort to manage the risks of AI.
It wasn't an easy decision for you to invite China, and indeed lots of people criticized me for it, but I think it was the right long-term decision, because any serious conversation about AI safety has to engage the leading AI nations.
Sunak welcomed U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris to the second day of the AI summit, as well as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. A conversation between Sunak and Elon Musk on the tech billionaire's X platform was to mark the final words on AI. According to two sources at the summit, Musk told fellow attendees on Wednesday that governments should not rush to roll out AI legislation.
From how artificial intelligence created a new track from the Beatles to big worries over bots on both sides of the Atlantic, we round up the week's big stories from the AI revolution. Listen in.
From why there's a new track from the Beatles to how Joe Biden wants to save the world from chatbots, this is Generation AI. AI is bringing the Beatles back together. Universal Music says a new track from the Fab Four will be released this week. Now and Then comes from an old demo tape made by John Lennon. Before AI came along, it hadn't been possible to separate his vocals and piano well enough to finish the song. Apple unveiled its latest chips, and it's making big claims.
They are the most advanced chips ever created for a personal computer.
Chief Executive Tim Cook says the top-spec M3 Max model is specifically aimed at AI developers who need huge amounts of memory to build chatbots. There were conflicting fortunes elsewhere in Silicon Valley. Microsoft shares jumped after it said demand for AI services helped drive a boom at its cloud computing unit. But growth sagged at the cloud division of Google parent Alphabet, raising investor concern that it's losing out to the Windows maker. Joe Biden is trying to reduce the risks posed by AI. The US president signed an executive order requiring developers to share results of safety tests with the government. That's a step beyond voluntary commitments made by tech firms earlier in the year. And politicians, academics, and corporate leaders gathered Wednesday in the UK for a summit on the same subject. Britain's King Charles recorded some opening remarks for the event.
AI continues to advance with ever greater speed towards models that some predict could surpass human abilities, even human understanding.
Elon Musk and OpenAI boss Sam Altman were among those on the guest list, alongside US Vice President Kamala Harris. But skeptics wonder how much influence London can wield when the US, EU, and China are setting the pace.
From deals to end the US auto strike to WeWork on the brink, this is the week in numbers. Up to 33% is the pay rise agreed for workers at General Motors. The agreement with union negotiators follows similar deals made by Ford and Chrysler parent Stellantis. Take a look at this report.
From deals to end the US auto strike to WeWork on the brink, this is the week in numbers. Up to 33% is the pay rise agreed for workers at General Motors. The agreement with union negotiators follows similar deals made by Ford and Chrysler parent Stellantis. That ends an unprecedented coordinated strike at the Detroit 3, and S&P auto analyst Mike Wall says other makers will have to match the deals.
I think at the end of the day, what you'll end up seeing is this labor rate escalation will likely translate to other automakers. There's going to be upward pressure there because, again, automakers are going to see that competitive competition for workers.
Almost 50% was the plunge in WeWork shares on Wednesday. That, after reports the firm will file for bankruptcy as soon as next week, crushed by debts and losses. It's a stunning fall from grace for the shared office space company, which was valued at $47 billion only a few years ago. $113 billion is how much Japan's government will spend to help consumers battle inflation. That includes tax cuts and moves to trim energy bills. Critics say it's more about boosting Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's poll ratings than boosting the economy. 3% was the after-hours drop in Apple shares on Thursday after it said holiday season sales this year would be about the same as last year. Wall Street analysts had expected a rise of close to 5%. Boss Tim Cook denied reports that Apple was losing market share to Huawei in China. And almost $1.8 billion was the latest quarterly profit at Samsung, a third up on the previous period. The South Korean tech giant cheered investors by saying it saw signs of a turnaround in demand for chips. Later in the week, US peer Qualcomm said it too saw signs of a silicon rebound.
Let's take you some of the stories from the climate change. For the third consecutive day this week, Delhi's air quality remains at a severe level, with an air quality index plummeting beyond 500. Over the past week, the air quality in Delhi NCR has worsened, primarily due to a gradual decrease in temperatures, stagnant winds that trap pollutants, and an increase in the burning of post-harvest paddy straw in Punjab and Haryana. Delhi Environment Minister Gopal Rai called upon his union counterpart to become more active in addressing the air pollution problem, saying it's not just the national capital but the entire North India that is breathing polluted air. Rai pointed out that the air pollution issue is not confined to Delhi alone and the situation is the same across North India.
के अंदर पिछले 2 दिनों में जिस तरह से प्रदूषण की स्थिति में बढ़ोतरी हो रही थी, उसको देखते हुए दिल्ली में कल से कंस्ट्रक्शन पे प्रतिबंध लगाया गया, गाड़ियों पे प्रतिबंध लगाया गया, पानी का छिड़काव शुरू हुआ। आज हम देख रहे हैं कि कल की अपेक्षा आज प्रदूषण के स्तर में सुधार देखा जा रहा है और सुबह जो AQI था वो 407 पर था, लेकिन अभी भी ये गंभीर स्थिति में है और उसको देखते हुए दिल्ली के अंदर जो है हमारी कोशिश ये है कि ग्रैब 3 के जो नियम है, जो व्हीकल पोल्यूशन है, डस्ट पोल्यूशन है, उसको ख़ास तौर से रोका जाए। साथ ही साथ केंद्र सरकार से हमने अभी आज चिट्ठी मैं लिख रहा हूँ कि पर्यावरण मंत्री तुरंत जो है वो 5 राज्य के पर्यावरण मंत्रियों की इमरजेंसी मीटिंग कॉल करें, क्योंकि हम ये देख रहे हैं कि CAQM का आदेश भी राज्यों में लागू नहीं किया जा रहा है। CAQM ने आदेश दिया था कि 1 नवंबर से डीजल की जो बसें हैं BS3 और BS4 वो NCR में नहीं चलेंगी, दिल्ली के अंदर नहीं भेजी जाएंगी। लेकिन कल रात में आनंद विहार खुद गया 11:30 बजे और वहाँ हमने देखा कि उत्तर प्रदेश से सारी जो बसें हैं वो BS3 और BS4 की ही दिल्ली में भेजी जा रही हैं। तो अभी ज़रूरत ये है कि नियम तो बन रहे हैं, CAQM डायरेक्शन भी दे रहा है, लेकिन मैं देख रहा हूँ कि पूरे NCR के अंदर उत्तर प्रदेश हरियाणा में पूरी तरह से जो है सारे आदेशों का जो है उल्लंघन किया जा रहा है, कोई मानने को तैयार नहीं है। जब तक सभी लोग नहीं मानेंगे, क्योंकि ये पूरे उत्तर भारत की समस्या है और सभी लोगों को उसका फॉलो करना पड़ेगा, तभी इसका समाधान हो सकता है।
In the latest about climate change, a wildfire raged near the coastal town of Gandia in Valencia in eastern Spain. The wildfire compelled the authorities to order the evacuation of about 350 people. According to emergency services, strong winds hampered efforts to tackle the flames from the air as more than 34 crews battled the blaze. The regional government has asked for help from the military emergency unit as firefighters from the entire region were drafted in to tackle the blaze. Now, Italy has declared state of emergency as floods in Tuscany intensify. As per latest report, 6 people have died due to severe flooding. The river Arno posed a threat to the historic city of Florence, but the high water point passed without major incidents. Campi, located northwest of Florence, faces a critical situation with widespread devastation. Around 190 people have been evacuated from their homes, particularly in Campi, where ground floor properties were damaged, cars submerged, and rescue efforts conducted with rubber. The Italian government declared a state of emergency and allocated €5 million to assist the worst affected areas. Approximately 48,000 people in the region are without electricity, and climate change is being blamed for the extreme rainfall and flooding. Tuscany's president stated it was the worst downpour in a century.
The water arrived here 70 centimeters. We were here to have dinner and we saw the water outside. It came through that door there and started coming in slowly, and in half an hour it all filled up with water. We couldn't stop the water. 10 families have their houses flooded. Luckily I'm a bit higher, but my cellar is destroyed. I've lost everything, the material that was in it. We are happy to be okay, but I've worked all my life. We are retired. I'm more worried about my children and grandchildren.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend ahead. This is Neha signing off.
News9 big coverage of 5 assembly polls. Mandate 2023.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News9 Plus.
This and more streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं जो कि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं.
Coaching is now starting from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
कोटा जाने वाली बीच राह में आधे टेस्ट देके हैं सिलेक्शन की चाह में.
ऑल इंडिया का बच्चा कोटा जाता है.
This rat race is for rats, not for humans. So why should we even be a part of it?
The Rat Race. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
This is the largest attack that the Hamas has ever done onto Israeli soil.
Within 20 minutes, more than 3,000 missiles were fired at Israel, along with vehicle-transported incursions.
Their main aim is only to finish the Hamas network. Main lifeline of Hamas, that is the tunnel. Hezbollah is also their main target.
You can kill a leader or 2 leaders or 10 leaders. It may delay their functioning for some time.
Most of the Hamas leadership who have been mastermind of all these things.
And last 10 years, $1 billion has gone into, brought in by this leader which sits in there. So every leader has its own role to perform.
In the early morning of October 7, 2023, the world woke up to the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Within 20 minutes, more than 3,000 missiles were fired at Israel, along with vehicle-transported incursions. With this, Hamas announced the start of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. In a series of coordinated attacks, militants breached the Gaza-Israel barrier, slaughtering civilians in the neighboring Israeli communities and attacking military bases, resulting in a death toll of over 1,300 Israelis, including women and children. Soon after the assault, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared a state of emergency for areas within 80 kilometers of the Gaza border and pledged that Israel will win by calling for mobilization of tens of thousands of army reservists. IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, launched Operation Swords of Iron to launch an invasion of Gaza. The goal was to rescue the hostages taken to Gaza and parallelly wipe out the top political and military hierarchy of the Hamas, the Palestinian group that controls Gaza.
Their main aim is only to finish the Hamas network. Initially, they will destroy the main lifeline of Hamas, that is the tunnel services. They are the tunnel because once they destroy all these things, then it's very easy to make them not to operate in all these northern areas. Then they will go behind the top leadership. Most probably, most of the Hamas leadership who have been mastermind of all these things might be escaped or might be in the different in the other parts of the world.
To find out who is Hamas and who is not Hamas is difficult. And also the Hamas is melted in the population across there. The population is not anti-Hamas. 56 or 60% in last voting supported Hamas as an organization. To say that the population will give out information that this fellow is Hamas and you can come and kill him, that is not simple. So you can kill a leader or 2 leaders or 10 leaders. It may delay their functioning for some time. The efficiency may be lost for some time. But finally another fellow will be thrown up, and that fellow will take charge of the same situation and carry it out. How many people can you keep assassinating, saying that you kill leaders? It's not so simple proposition.
As of today, the IDF has successfully neutralized 2 of Hamas's top military leadership and is determined to go after all of them one by one, starting from Mahmoud al-Zahar, also known as al-Zahar, a Palestinian politician and co-founder of Hamas. Believed to be about 60 years old, Zahar was close to Hamas founder Ahmed Yassin and has also served as foreign minister in the Hamas-dominated Palestinian Authority government.
He created $1 billion from Qatari government, which were fed into Hamas carried in suitcases and notes inside Gaza. That money which allows the fighting to take place in Gaza comes from Qatar. And last 10 years, $1 billion has gone into, brought in by this leader which sits in there.
Yahya al-Sinwar, also known as Yahya Sinwar, he is being referred to as the face of evil. He is accused of masterminding the recent Hamas attack, which left 1,300 Israelis dead. He is the current Palestinian leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. It is al-Sinwar who co-founded the security apparatus of Hamas and is considered the second most powerful figure within the Hamas.
دعها سرا يا أبا إبراهيم دعها سرا ولتتحدث عن نفسها إذا حدثت.
Mohammed Daif Ibrahim Masri, or Mohammed Daif, often referred to as Al-Daif, The guest is a one-eyed Palestinian militant and supreme military commander of the military wing of Hamas. He is believed to be one of the masterminds behind the audacious October 7 attack. At present, his whereabouts are unknown, though he is believed to be hiding in Gaza somewhere in the maze of tunnels and is currently on top of Israel's hit list. Abu Ubaidah, one of the